friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I get asked the question quite often, where do I get my grain? So I thought I'd shoot this quick video just to answer that question, and I'll talk about a few other things while I'm at it. And what better place to talk about it but in front of my Country Living grain mill. I love this thing. So I'm going to talk just a second about this. I do have other videos about it. But if you're looking at getting a grain mill, I highly recommend this. It's always linked in my description box down below. These are actually made here in Washington State, and they are very solid, built like a tank. It comes with the hand crank. That's how it's set up. However, Patrick did refurbish an old motor he found at a garage sale. He did a video on it so that though I used to always grind my grains by hand, I now use the motor because it saves me a ton of time. And anyway, so he has a video on how he made this and hooked it up to the grain mill, and it works really great, which we can plug into our solar power if we're not getting any public power. And for those of you who are new, we are partially off grid. We live the best of both worlds, having public power as well as solar power and other different means where we can do things completely off grid that don't take any type of power, such as, you know, the hand crank mill or my treadle machine and various other things. So I can either plug it into solar power, or even if that fails on us and we don't have public power, I still can go back to using the hand crank on this to grind my grains. Now, I have several different videos about the types of grains I've used, but through the years and the farther down the road I go and I experiment with different things, I have simplified it even more, and I've narrowed it down to my two favorite grains when it comes to making my breads, and that is the hard white wheat, which I love that. I never liked wheat bread until I found the hard white wheat. That is my favorite for flavor. It doesn't have that more bitter flavor that your red wheat does. And then spelt. So I mix those together. I use about 2/3 to 3/4 of the amount in here is the hard white wheat, and then the rest is the spelt. If it really came right down to it, if I had to select one, I would go with the hard white wheat. It is my very favorite, and I've used many different types of grains. I will go ahead and link down below for those of you who are interested to the different types of wheat grains and such that I've used in my bread making. And so you can check that out. Don't forget to click on show more, which is about right here under the video, or the little gray arrow right over here if you're on a smart device. I also have another video I have about soaking wheat grains, and that might be something you might want to consider. Now, honestly, because my time keeps getting more and more precious, I don't even bother with it anymore, because for us, we just don't have issues with grains. So I don't even soak them anymore. I just take them from the bag and I grind them up, and we've noticed no difference health-wise in doing one or the other. So I don't even take that extra step. However, if you do have certain gut issues, or you find that grains bother you, for some people who do have issues, they found the first step for them was simply going from store-bought flours to grinding the grains fresh to make their flours whenever they make bread. And that was enough to cure any of the issues they had dealing with grains. For other people, they go the next step, which would be to soak, dry, and then grind the grains, which is what I was doing for a few years there. Or for some other people, going the next step after that, which would be to soak, sprout, then dry the grains, then grind them up. So got to find what works best for you. Again, we just don't really need that extra step, but for some, it could be very beneficial. So I recommend you check out my grain soaking videos. Now, to where I get my grains, well, it really depends. If we had an Azure Standard drop point here, I would get all of them from Azure Standard, because they have great quality and great prices, the best prices I've seen on grains anywhere. So I'd get all my rice, all my wheat grains, all my oats, popcorn, everything there. Now, I have bought a lot from them and I'm very happy, but because we don't have a drop point near us, and getting to the next town over and trying to schedule that in to where there is a drop point is just too much of a pain. Yet I have found that even when I'm having to pay a pretty good price for shipping, and we're in Washington and Azure Standard is located in Oregon, even then, because you're talking 50-pound bags, it's a lot to have that shipped, and you know, that's fine. I find even when I have to pay the shipping prices that it's still worth it. But I don't always buy all my grains there. Obviously, the more I'm going to buy, I don't really save on shipping by buying more at a time. So when it comes to certain things like organic rice, I'll stock up on that from Costco when they have it available, and have been very happy with that. But if you have a drop point anywhere near you, I highly recommend looking into Azure Standard, because you can really save a lot of money if you have a drop point, because then now you're not paying the shipping either, and their price per pound on their organic non-GMO grains is really good. Now, another place I used to get my grains from before Azure Standard was Glory Bee, which is also located down in Oregon. And we did have a co-op here, and that worked out pretty good, because we could get it shipped up here for free, and then it very similar to the whole idea of Azure Standard. And as long as we all had, you know, collectively a good size order, none of us had to pay the shipping. We just got the really good per pound prices by buying in bulk. And so that's another really good place. I don't know how far reaching their drop points are and their co-ops, but you can look into there. I think for both places you can go online to their stores and see if you can find a drop point near you by just looking in there. I know Azure Standard does. I'm not sure if Glory Bee does have that set up. So there are two really good places there. Now, another place I would recommend is seeing if you have any grain areas near you. We recently heard of one that's only about 75 miles from us. Well, that's the same area. On those rare occasions we go to town, like I'll go, that's where I like to get my chicken feed, because it's the only place I can find that specific non-GMO organic feed, and it also has the best price, and that's over in Squim. Well, apparently there's a place out there that sells all locally grown grains for a really good price per pound. And one of these days, if we ever get in there again and I remember, I want to check that place out. So with that in mind, you might want to look around to see if there's a place like that not far from you where you can get a good deal per pound. It's a locally grown, organic, non-GMO and all that. You might be able to find a good deal going that way. Now, when worse comes to worse and I'm not ready to do an Azure Standard and I just need something, sometimes I will look on Amazon. There are certain grains that you can get there that are organic and non-GMO that you can get on the subscribe and save a little bit there. They do sell the Great River Milling. I think it's Great River Milling it's called. I've bought their grains many times. Organic, non-GMO. They have really great flours and grains. They don't have a ton to choose from. The prices are still going to be way more expensive than going with Azure Standard, Glory Bee, or possibly finding a place locally. But again, in a pinch, let's say Azure Standard doesn't have what I need and I'm wanting to get stocked up, I may go ahead and buy some of that from Amazon. Another company I like to buy when I buy grains and beans and stuff that I'll get through Amazon is the Palouse brand. And that's actually in our own state, so Palouse, Washington. So I like getting those for like the garbanzo beans and the green split peas. That's where I'll get those. And I can also get those on Subscribe and Save as well. So I will go ahead and put links to that down below, as well as links to Azure Standard. I'll probably link directly to a couple of my favorite products from Azure Standard, and then also to Glory Bee, so you can check all those places out. So again, predominantly lately I've been getting my grains from Azure Standard, and then occasionally from a few other places. Other grains that I do get from Azure Standard, besides popcorn, I also get their white corn. I grind that up in the Country Living grain mill. I talked about this fairly recently, I think, in a this and that video. We have to change out the auger for the corn. Whenever you're grinding corn or beans, you need a different auger in here, so Patrick changes that out. I'll grind up a whole bunch of cornmeal, and then we'll change it back to this so I can grind the wheat flours as I need it, and then the cornmeal I store in Fido jars to keep it fresh. But that way we don't have to change it out so much. But you can also get a peanut butter auger for this, and we even have a video on that. If you can afford the expense for this, it is the one I recommend the most. But there's also the Wonder Mill. People like that one quite a bit. You can either get it as an electric one or you can get the hand crank one. But again, this is just my favorite all around. Of course, it's the only one I've had, but I've been very pleased with it. If you can afford the price, it's kind of like getting that All-American canner. If you can afford to invest in it, then do it, because it's going to last you for a lifetime and then some. I know this will last me for a lifetime. I've had it for quite a few years, and it has just been a real workhorse, and I love it. So some other grains that I get besides the corn is I've also bought some rye grains from them. I've bought popcorn from them. This is the Azure Standard again. And their oats, all really good stuff. You can get the oats in various different thicknesses. You can get the whole oat groats. So many different ways you can buy it. I bought buckwheat there. I've also bought my organic cheese through there. I'll get the big 5-pound bricks, which is a pretty good deal. And I love that cheese. It's the Rumiano brand, I think it's called, and it's just one of my favorites. And they have many other things. I've also bought unbleached flour there and several other things. I know I'm forgetting a bunch. So they have a ton of baking type stuff there. Oh, and also, if you know of any really good places where a person can get organic and non-GMO grains for a good price and little to no shipping if possible, please share those links with us down below, because I'd be willing to look into other places as well if it means I could save even more money but still get the high quality like I get from Azure Standard or like I was getting from Glory Bee. All right, well, thanks so much for watching. Take care and God bless.